You're listening to Freedom Talk Radio with your host Andy Peacher, live from the UK. Email us freedomtalkradio2013@gmail.com or visit us at freedomtalkradioonline.com.
And hope you're having a wonderful day, and we're going to talk about the naughty boys and girls again, as we always do on this channel.
Yes. Yeah. I remember the airport, Denver airport, and it had all kinds of psychopathic art. I don't know, what else to call it. Avant-garde psychopath art. Anyway, it depicted the planned American Holocaust, according to many analysts, and it depicted artwork, if you could call it that, very sick artwork of Christian children in coffins. And I recall there was one child depicted in the artwork that wore the star, the so-called Star of David.
I think it's this one.
What exactly the star, the Jewish star, represents is subject to debate, but it's sometimes called the Seal of Solomon. It's sometimes called the Star of David. Whatever you want to call it, it is a Jewish symbol. And so one of the children was wearing that inside a coffin. So I was disturbed by all the images at the Denver airport, as no doubt many have been who have viewed them. And it is, there is a documentary available online called The American Holocaust. So there is a plan, and it seems to be in the process of being implemented. Now, I remember George Herbert Walker Bush, aka George Bush Sr., passed the no-hide laws through executive order when he was president. And the no-hide laws are pretty horrific. They are apparently based on ancient Abrahamic law, so that if anyone disobeys the government authorities, they will be facing execution. And the FEMA camps have, I believe it's estimated to have something like 30,000 guillotines. They're electronic guillotines. And not too long ago, I saw a film in which this scenario was depicted, this kind of end times scenario. And there were two protagonists in the film, and they were captured and taken to one of these camps. And ostensibly, if you are held in one of these camps and they put you on the what looks like a ceremonial altar table, in which they insert your head inside this circular device on the edge of the table that you're lying on. That is the electronic guillotine. And it just tightens around your neck like a noose, and it has a very sharp razor, I presume, and when it is slowly constricting on the neck, it will eventually decapitate the prisoner. So they wish you to pledge allegiance to the Antichrist and to renounce Christ if you are a Christian. And if you don't do as they command, well, off with your head. That's the scenario. Now, to genocide all white Christians in the United States with 30,000 guillotines, it's estimated that it could be accomplished in just a few days. I remember I read that on the show weeks ago. So, Andy, any comment?
It sounds pretty horrible, doesn't it? What they're doing.
Indeed. Yeah, indeed.
I've got one of these. I've had the children one, and I've got another one. These are one of the murals at the airport.
Right.
Yeah, very scary stuff.
Yeah. They were all shown in a film, a documentary film called The American Holocaust. I'm sure if you do a search for it, you can find it, the film. Okay, now you were asking about the Chabad, Andy, and you want a definition?
Yeah, because the examples I'll give you is just very simple. That some people are saying, well, it's the Rothschilds because they got all the money. Then somebody will say, well, it's the pharmaceutical companies because they're injecting you with poisonous stuff. Some people say it's the Jewish. Some people will say it's the Islamic State, and so on and so on. So I'm a little bit confused. So as others, who's really doing all the? Who are the controllers, basically? And if they're the Shabbat, can you sort of explain it a bit easier for us?
Yeah, the Chabad is one of the most powerful and lethal players operating within the synagogue of Satan. We could call it Team Antichrist. And they are and have a long-term plan to genocide the Goyim, genocide Gentiles, and even a portion of what they deem to be the rotten branch of Judaism. So any of their fold that have inbred with Gentiles are considered a rotten branch of Judaism, or any conversos that have converted to Judaism but are not of the historic bloodline would be deemed to be a rotten branch of Judaism. So what do they have planned for these people? Well, you guessed it, genocide. Okay, so Chabad plans for the genocide of Christians and Jews. All right, I'll begin with the Chabad in World War II. Along with Victor Rothschild and Bernard Baruch, then Chabad leader Rabbi Yosef Yitzhak Schneerson was one of the top 3 Zionist bosses of the NSDAP from 1933 to 45. In order to get World War II ramped up, Team Antichrist placed MI6 agent Adolf Hitler in power in Germany in January 1933 to bring about both World War II and the final defeat of Germany. the top two World War II goals of Team Antichrist were really to launch the Antichrist State of Israel in 1948 and to increase the death toll of the German Holocaust from only 2 million in 1939 to 6 million by May 1945, and finally to 37 million ethnic German civilians by 1955, because the Zionist powers, the U.S., Great Britain, Russia, and France, genocided over 31 million from May 8, 1945, VE Day, until the 27th of July, 1955, the day the Bolshevik Zionist Red Army left Austria. Any comment there, Andy?
No, not so much comment, but just still back on the confusion about Shabads. Right, how to explain this? It says that basically the Chabad this is AI intelligence now. It's known
Okay.
as Lubavitch. It's a major Orthodox Hasidic movement.
Okay.
Basically, what
The
you've
his
said, but
the
where the
his
confusion comes in, it
yeah.
mentions that organization condemned the synagogue bombing of the Jews in Manchester recently. So I'm just wondering, because don't we agree that it's not all Jews that are bad? That's where the confusion comes in. It seems like the Shabbat is the Jews, but it's the Jews not always the bad ones. Yeah, it's still confusing.
Well, I mean, genetically speaking, I mean, it's not like they've got an evil gene or something. No, I mean, Jews are just human beings. There's no reason to dislike the people that are known as the Jews per se. In fact, they're as much a victim in all of this Holocaust business as Christians and other Gentiles are. They're at the whim and at the mercy of this Chabad group. Now, the top goal of Team Antichrist is orchestrating World War I had been to get the Antichrist State of Israel declared in principle, which came about after Britain issued the Balfour Declaration on November 2nd, 1917. Essentially, Team Antichrist granted victory in World War I to Britain because of the Balfour Declaration, despite the fact that Germany was actually winning the war territorially when peace negotiations were announced on November 11th, 1918. Now look at that date, 11/11. That is the founding date of the Knights Templar. And the Knights Templar were formed by Merovingian knights. What is Merovingian? Well, from my research, it seems that they are Saxons, as in Anglo-Saxons. What is Saxons actually derived from? Apparently it's Isaac's sons, the sons of Isaac. Therefore, Jewish tribe or tribes that settled in Lower Saxony in Germany. And so the whole area, Saxony, derives its name from Isaac's sons. So it was the tribe of Dan that apparently came up the river Danube from the Vale of Arcady in the Valley of Arcady in Greece, where they had settled and become the Spartans. So when you think of the Greek Spartans, realize it's actually the tribe of Dan. They later migrated north up the river Danube and settled in Lower Saxony and interbred with the local German tribes to form the Merovingian bloodline, which actually became the first dynastic kings, the Merovingian French kings, up to the year 600 AD, with Dagobert II being the last of the Merovingian kings. And then Charles Martel took over, and so you had the Carolingian dynasty taking place after that. Now, so when you think about the history here of the Knights Templar being commemorated in the actual armistice date of 11/11, 1917, sorry, 11/11 of the World War One armistice date, right? When the war was declared over, 1918, right? November 11th, 1918. So the fifth Chabad Rebbe, Sholem Dovber Schneerson, played a key role in orchestrating World War I and in planning the creation of the Antichrist state of Israel until his death in 1920. He was the father of the sixth Chabad Rebbe, Yusuf Yitzhak Schneerson, who succeeded him as Chabad Zionatzi in chief after his death in March 1920. I remember one day I saw a symbol of a Star of David or Seal of Solomon, whatever that Jewish star you want, whatever you want to call it, with the Nazi swastika inside it. And I thought, my goodness, to think that Zionism and Nazism are actually part of the same entity. That's horrific. I mean, who would have thought? Who would have even conceived of such a thing? But there it was as an emblem or a symbol on the wall in, of all places, a washroom. And I thought, wow, who has figured this out? Anyway, do you understand that concept, Andy?
Yeah, I
That
think
Nazism.
I think there was Zionist branch of, yeah, they're kind of a Zionist branch, aren't they? Yeah, because all Zionists are
Yeah,
bad anyway, so that rings okay with me.
yeah. I mean, basically, they control these elites. These Luciferian elites control both sides of the chessboard. So they control the black and white squares, the light forces and the dark forces, good and evil, if you like. And this is depicted on the floors of their temples. The Masonic temple has black and white squares on the masonry floor of each temple. Why is it there? Because they control the light and the dark forces. They control both sides. And in every conflict, whether it's a civil war, whether it's a geopolitical conflict involving two superpowers, they control both sides. They fund, they supply troops, they supply arms to both sides. They bankroll the whole thing. And with the aim of culling the herd, with the aim of creating a mass sacrifice to their God, that God of this world that they deem to be their God, Lucifer. So it's horrifying to think, but when Jesus was murdered crucified, if you like. He was done. It was done under the orders of the Pharisees. Jesus was not a Pharisee. He was a Nazarene. And today we call Nazarenes Christians. The Pharisees became known as rabbinical Judaism, which survives to the present day. It is the only legitimate surviving sect of Judaism. So essentially, the modern Jewish sect of Judaism, called rabbinical Judaism, descends from the Pharisees. Where did the Pharisees come about? You might have heard of the Farsis. Well, it's from Persia, right? It's from Iran. And when the Jews were exiled in Babylon, they introduced the Talmud as a religious text. The Talmud basically is the antithesis of the Torah. And so Jesus says you can't serve two masters. They are essentially, because the Torah was written in pious devotion to the God of Israel, Yahweh. And this later text, the Talmud, which was authored and published, if you like, in the time of the Babylonian exile, repudiates everything in the Torah, denies the Ten Commandments, insists that you break all of the Ten Commandments. It corrupts the morals of the entire religion, really. It corrupts the morals of all the followers of the religion, Judaism. I believe it's a Luciferian or satanic text. It has appalling commandments in it for the perverse ethics that it promotes, which is basically, do everything you possibly can to cheat, abuse, mistreat the Gentile, and violate their children, and all this horrible ideology. So unfortunately, because of the Pharisees, which created rabbinical Judaism, that is the only surviving sect of Judaism that has survived to this day. Now, to find fault in a religion is not to find fault in the people that follow that religion based on race. It's just that the values that are promoted in the Talmud are dehumanizing, inhumane, racist to the core. And, while it's true that Jews often complain about anti-Semitic remarks or anti-Semitic beliefs towards them, the Talmud has indoctrinated a good percentage of Jews which follow the Judaic faith to be racist towards Gentiles. So it goes both ways, and that's the problem. There is a war between Jews and Gentiles. I don't want the war, and I certainly don't want to promote the war. I would like to diffuse it. I would like to shut it down. I would like everyone to go home and relax and get out of the fray, not to get involved. That is my recommendation. That is my hope. That is my wish. That is my prayer. I want to end to all these hostilities between Christians and Muslims, the hostility between Jews and Christians, the hostility between Jews and Muslims, all of it. Be done with it. I don't see a problem with Hinduism particularly. I don't see a problem with Buddhism. But the three Abrahamic religions are problematic. Not only are they in contention with each other, but historically they've caused problems for our world in general. I mean, the history of Catholicism is rife with campaigns of genocide. The Cathars, for example, were subject to a genocidal campaign by the Roman Catholic Church, a population that was settled in southern France. And there's been numerous other examples of genocide that has been orchestrated by the Catholic Church, not least the Native American population, which they had a big hand in. All right, so Andy, any comment?
No, I better not have any. It will just get too confusing.
Okay. All right.
Now, I get it a little bit, but because I've just been reading about it a little bit.
Yes.
They don't necessarily believe in, Satan. Satan is a Christian bad angel, and so on. But it does, it is mind blowing, and the way you're explaining it, somebody with a bit more sense than me will probably understand it. We don't want any wars between anybody. We should all live together, color, creed, religion. And of course, I reminded myself, God didn't want to create the evil. It just sort of basically had to give you the choice. And it was Adam's apple, weren't it, in the Christian religion? Somebody ate the apple, and that's why there is evil. But he gave you that choice. He didn't make you choose. You've got to remember that.
All right, so what do you think is symbolized by the apple in the garden, or the fruit in the garden, the forbidden fruit?
It was some kind of trust issue, wasn't it? Kind of. If they didn't eat the apple, we'd all live in peace and harmony. Because they did eat the apple, then it's the other way, So it's kind of I think it's a bit of a trust issue, but yeah, a choice issue, not trust, choice. They made the wrong choice.
In my view, that whole story of the Garden of Eden is a fabricated myth with no basis in fact. I think there was an intervention in our genetics. Some would say by the Anunnaki. I think that it's possible that the Anunnaki were the fallen angels. In the book of Genesis, it refers to how they, sons of the gods, became enamored with the daughters of men and bred with them to produce the race of giants known as the Nephilim. Now, when two species that are not supposed to breed manage to succeed in breeding by whatever means, they end up compromising the growth gene in both the male and the female parent. So the offspring grow to an enormous size because the growth gene is compromised. So a tiger breeding with a lion will produce a liger, which is a genetic dead end. That animal will not be able to breed with its own kind to produce more offspring, but it itself is 3 times the size of the two parents, the lion and the tiger. It's an enormous beast, and it eats an enormous amount of food and has an enormous appetite. Now, the Nephilim were the product of breeding between the fallen angels and humans, 2 species that should never have copulated, should never have had sexual congress, but somehow they had created a hybrid of the 2 species, which became a race of giants known as the Nephilim. And apparently, according to biblical scholars, the reason that God, Yahweh, if you like, decided to destroy the world with a flood was because of this abomination, the fact that a race of giants had been produced as an abomination due to this sexual congress between the fallen angels and the humans. It's a very disturbing story, all of that, and it's found in the book of Enoch, which is a text that was excluded from the so-called Holy Bible, and the book of Adam and Eve, in which you get a very involved account of what took place. Prior to that, in the Sumerian tablets, there was a reference to the Anunnaki, those who from the heavens came to earth. Now, they have been called the reptilians by researchers like David Icke. So, what I believe is that the fallen angels are the Anunnaki. All right, so in his 2016 book, The Rabbis Saved by Hitler's Soldiers, Brian Mark Rigg described how the NSDAP gave the 6th Chabad Rebbe, one of its top 3 bosses, his freedom in 1940, when Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, head of the Abwehr counterintelligence, helped him to leave Warsaw by ordering Oberst Ernst Bloch, a Jewish Abwehr soldier from Berlin, and other Abwehr agents to accompany his 6th Chabad Rebbe VIP from Warsaw to Berlin and then on to Riga, Latvia. From Latvia, he sailed via Sweden and reached New York City in March 1940. Note, along with Adolf Hitler, Martin Bormann, Hermann Göring, and Karl Dönitz, Admiral Wilhelm Canaris was one of the top 5 MI6 agents in NSDAP Germany in World War II, whose main task was to ensure a Zionist victory. On August 3, 2009, the Chabad asked Yad Vashem Jewish Holocaust Remembrance Center to recognize MI6 agent Canaris as a righteous Gentile for saving the 6th Chabad Rebbe but the request was denied. Can you believe this? It's just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just. So they almost, yeah, strange. They control the wars, but they're on both sides. That's the bit that's, another pop-up question. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're almost an invisible people or an entity, something, whatever it is invisible in a way because, Freemasons are Freemasons. I suppose Satan's people are invisible too. Yeah, it's
yeah,
amazing how you got your head around all that, put it that way.
yeah. Well, I mean, with their symbolism in the Great Seal of the Bavarian Illuminati, which is on the backside of the American $1 bill, that's a Great Seal of the United States as well. And you want to consider that the Bavarian Illuminati was created in 1776, the very same year that the United States of America was founded as a nation. And the fact that they should share the same Great Seal, I think, speaks volumes. Now, the Muslims refer to the United States of America as the Great Satan. Well, I mean, Americans are like Jews, they're not bad people. It's just that their nation, if you like, their country has been hijacked and has been controlled by a Luciferian elite, as has many of our countries since the beginning. Okay, so the link explains exactly what the sixth Chabad Rebbe Yosef Yitzhak Schneerson did after he reached the U.S.A. in March 1940, which can be summarized as follows. He never did anything to rescue any Jews from the Jewish Holocaust. The obvious reason is because one of the top bosses of NSDAP, he was well aware that no genocide was occurring, and indeed in 1948 the Red Cross certified that 104,572 Jews had died tragically of disease and not by genocide in the labor camps. That's a bit shocking. I didn't realize that. Um, I have to give credit to Patrick O'Connor for the research we are sharing on today's show. These points that I am reading and discussing are from his work, Patrick O'Connor.
He's an amazing guy for sure. So amazing that, I don't understand half what he says, but everybody else does, and that's the main thing. And I publish all his work when I can. It's just so hard to do everything at once. And
Yeah.
I've got in trouble before for publishing the wrong stuff. So I got
Oh,
but most of his stuff is dead on, because he references the stuff from the internet that's already published. So he's not really making stuff up. He's just having his own opinion or his own facts
yeah.
from the research. Yeah.
Well, Henry Makow is a Jewish guy. He's a Canadian. He's a Jewish Canadian, and I've met him. I've had lunch with him and had a few discussions with him. He is a former Jew who's converted to Christianity, and his opinion is that, sadly, tragically, Judaism has degenerated in its modern form to a satanic religion. Now, this is a Jew, clearly not an anti-Semite. it's a little difficult to hate your own kind. He's just critical of a religion that has been hijacked by Luciferians and subverted and, in his view, basically destroyed, turned into a travesty, an apostasy that far deviates from the original religion of Abraham that he would presumably approve of. Now, this is a Jew who had some upbringing in the Judaic culture, who knows Judaism probably as well as Christianity, and his opinion of it is that it is a satanic religion. There's many Catholics who have over the years become disappointed with their religion, and they have left Catholicism, maybe to become a Protestant Christian, or maybe to become an atheist, but they have abandoned their faith. And he's a Jew who's come to the conclusion that there's a problem with his religion, and he left it and converted to Christianity. Anyway.
Yeah, so
yeah,
we get a lot of people. You was going to explain it earlier, and I think we didn't. We'll leave it at that. I could tell you in the comments what happened later on. Anyway, yeah. So why
go
do
ahead?
then?
Tell me now. Tell me now. What does it say in the comments?
No, I haven't said it. I haven't put it in the comment. I'll tell you now, though, what I was going to say.
Okay.
When things are going wrong,
yeah.
I mean, this is the confusion for most people. Oh, it must be the Freemasons, and then it must be the Satanism. But a lot of the comments recently, when it comes to the migrants, they're blaming the Islamic movement. So why is that the case?
Okay. No, I don't blame Muslims for any of it. I think it's a divide and conquer scheme, and that they have deliberately flooded Western nations with illegal migrants, refugees, many of whom are of a Muslim background, because they specifically want to spawn a race war. They want Muslims and Christians to kill each other. They have planned it. Is the Chabad behind it? Yes, they are. They're one of the entities that are surely behind it. Is the Illuminati involved? Absolutely. The Illuminati are Luciferians. That's just it. That's what they are. The 13 interbreeding bloodline families known as the Illuminati are Luciferians. And all of their lackeys, like George Soros and all those people, are Luciferians. So it is a scheme. It is meant to divide and conquer. It is meant to set these nations up for failed nation status. UN Blue Helmet troops will be dispatched to these various Western nations that have fallen. And I believe the plan is to genocide all white Christians. You can just say all whites if you like. It doesn't matter the Christian side of it. They just want to exterminate white people. They're blaming everything on whites. All the historical crimes, all the historical problems are all being blamed on whites. They're constantly being stripped of any human dignity by the mainstream press, which is controlled by these Luciferian bloodlines. And it's horrifying, but the Chabad wants to see that there is a genocide of all white Christians before the Antichrist takes the throne in October of 2027.
Yeah, I understand that bit. But there is obviously a bad element to all religions. And I was just wondering if, like the Jews, the day-to-day Jewish person is brilliant. Maybe the day-to-day Muslim person or Islamic person is brilliant, but there may be an element, you know, to the Islamist that is bad, controlled, like you said, by Chabad.
Right, indeed, or by the Luciferian um, organizations at the top.
I mean, in our Western world, I think you'd agree that it doesn't matter if you're Muslim, black, blue, yellow, pink, boy, girl, lesbian, whatever, as long as you're okay, we're happy with you being sitting next door to us. Don't do us any harm, we won't do you any. I mean, it's just normal Western, or, well, I would have thought it was just normal anywhere in the world that, as long
Yeah,
as someone don't do you no harm.
absolutely. So, in the recent riots that have taken place in Italy, where um, Muslims have been accused of rioting, I don't believe they're Muslims. I think they're agent provocateurs. What organization is behind these agent provocateurs, supporting them, funding them, orchestrating these riots? I don't know. Maybe ISIS, maybe Al Qaeda. I don't know. I really don't know who's behind it, but I do not believe that these are ordinary Muslim people rioting in Italy or causing problems in any other Western European nation. Where there are confrontations and acts of violence taking place, I think it's agent provocateurs. Are they Is MI6 behind it? I don't know. Maybe one of the intelligence services of Europe could be behind it. I'm not certain, but I do believe that they are agent provocateur people. They are not the ordinary Muslim protesting in Italy. So what does this do? It obviously inflames anti-Muslim sentiment in countries like Italy, and it's going to spark a conflict between presumably Christian Italians and this Muslim community that's settled in Italy. But it's not the Muslims that are doing this. It is agent provocateur. And what is the point? To spark a race war or to spark a religious war between them and to pit the two groups against each other with the presumable aim of mass slaughter.
No, I get that. It definitely isn't the ordinary person. Maybe the bad people have been paid a lot of money to do it. Or maybe they're just doing it for free because they love doing it. I don't know. But one thing I am sure of,
Mhm.
somebody's definitely doing, controlling it. It has to be.
I am
It's not an
absolutely
accident
certain.
anymore. I
No.
mean, if you add up different little pieces of jigsaw, I mean, you could probably go back years and years and years. I mean, probably with the assassinating of Kennedy, but after that, there seems to be too many coincidences that you're building up on your hand, and then you've got to have two pairs of hands, three pairs of hands, and to such a it's like a war that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and now instead of being it's America's problem, it's Pakistan's problem, it's everybody's problem now, and even within where you live, there's a problem, even though you didn't create it. It's mad.
Yeah.
Well, thank God, not on this little island, but on the bigger island in where we live in the Orkney Islands, you do see signs of Why are they here? I mean, let's just say that they looked a bit like they're Syrian people. They looked like they were people from all over the world, and you think, yeah, I don't want to get involved. And then, of course, they're raping our kids as well. They're raping our wives. They're stealing from shops. I mean, sounds bad, because it probably is, but maybe they're doing that because they were put in this position by someone in the first place, and they're just doing what any desperate human being would do. I don't know. That's got to be a part of some weird plan, because then we'd
Well,
hate them, wouldn't we? And that's what it's intended to do. We've got to hate these migrants.
whoever put these corrupt officials in charge in our various religious denominations, they're there as agents to do the harm they're meant to do. And so, we mustn't blame all Muslims for the grooming gangs and the rape of young British children. I'm sure most Muslims would not ever want to participate in anything as horrific, but whoever these mafia groups are within the Muslim religion, they've set up something that's functioning like a protection racket, and within that protection racket, prostitution rings and other corrupt elements have formed, and it's causing great harm. And
Yeah, I mean
it's
the
doing
the
it
grooming grooming gang scandals, because there's more than one, Rochdale and Telford and so on, many more. Not just the Muslims that actually probably did the offence, but it's all the white police, the white social workers, the white this and the white that, that protected them to allow them to do what they were doing. So it wasn't, I don't think it was, just because they were Asian. It was because there was something nasty going on in their town with all officials.
right. And I would guess that the corrupt police and magistrates and so forth that have aided and abetted this corruption are Masons. And it's a pattern I've seen in other countries, not least my own, Canada, where the Freemasons are responsible for the corrupting of society, make sure that officials turn a blind eye to certain forms of corruption and allow it to fester and to grow and to become the cancerous tumor that's eating our societies from within. And I've seen it with a family associate who was a 32nd degree Freemason and was appointed as an immigration judge in his locale, and he was admitting into the country all kinds of mafia from different organizations internationally: the Russian mafia, the Vietnamese mafia, Chinese triad mafia, etc., etc. All of them were being given entry through him as an immigration judge, and not just entry. They were given PR status, permanent residence status, and eventually citizenship. So he was responsible for bringing these corrupting influences into the province of Ontario. Thank you. And so he was eventually investigated by the RCMP. But what happened? Well, the Masonic power rallied around him to protect him. He got a slap on the wrist, house arrest. You just stay on your property. You can only have family visit, no friends no contact with anyone outside family. Stay here on your house property and do not leave for I've forgotten how long. But I'm not family, and my family visited him and had lunch on his picnic table on his front lawn. So, so much for the house arrest. It was absolutely
House
meaningless.
arrest, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
They do that over here.
Well, it's a
With
slap on.
our grooming gang officials, the
Yeah.
ringleaders, they did get a fair sentence of, I mean, one the other day got 35 years. Most of them
Wow.
get a minimum of 10. So, I mean, they do. I suppose what happens is, even the good police probably get involved and say, right, whether you're police, whether you're Muslim, you're all going to, face the brunt of the law. Thank God, that policy works.
Yeah.
But then, the stupid policies our government makes, they send a lady to jail just for a tweet, an X post for 2 years. Lucy Conley, ridiculous.
I want to just cover a point here, Andy, that I think is important. The Chabad did collect money for saving Jews from the Jewish Holocaust, but spent that money to build its educational institutions in New York City, including its world headquarters at 770 Eastern Parkway in Crown Heights in Brooklyn, which it constructed in 1940 and which today has child rape tunnels that lead directly to a Jewish ritual bathhouse located at 394 Kingston Avenue, Brooklyn. So these child rape tunnels exist in many, many places, not least beneath Disneyland and Disney World, and princes and elite Luciferians from all over the world come there to rape these children who are abducted on the rides and never seen again. And the local authorities will investigate the missing child case without ever coming to a conclusive end with the investigation. And I'm sure there's obstruction of justice and all kinds of things interfering with the investigation to prevent the finger from being pointed at Disney property owners at Disney World and Disneyland. That's one location where it takes place. Do these child rape tunnels exist in major cities around the world? Well, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, they exist in France, in Pont-à-l'Amont, where Diana was killed. There were a series of underground catacombs in that location where children were sacrificed to the goddess Diana in pagan rituals going back hundreds of years. If they were doing it historically for hundreds of years, why wouldn't they be doing it today in some tunnels underneath the streets of Paris, the streets of perhaps London, all the major cities that we can think of? Do you believe that, Andy?
Well, yeah, because I've seen an article about the rape tunnels, the child rape tunnels, and it's
Horrible.
basically one article said the child rape assembly line. Now they're pointing at the New York. I mean, this is well before the New York tunnels were discovered. This was an article where, possibly that's what's happening. And then they mention in London as well. the child rape tunnels in London. Well, as you know, in London, all the sewers underneath all the railway stations, I mean, they could be used as such a thing.
How
So, yeah.
horrible.
I mean, in this particular, it basically says the child sex abuse crisis in Orthodox Judaism, local and Catholic Church produced a show of shocking headlines in recent years, and so on. So it's just one, basically,
Oh,
stands as one. Focused in America.
your, your voice your voice is sounding a bit tinny, kind of breaking up.
Assembly lines or right tunnels, you'll say, look, the Jews, the Christians, the Catholics, if there are people in society that do that, then okay, fair enough. We'll put them in jail, blah, blah, blah. But how far can you turn a blind eye? I
Yeah,
mean, I suppose I was a little bit shocked to learn it was happening within the Jewish community. I knew that obviously the Mormons, the Nazareth, the Christians, the Catholics, but yeah, just a little bit of a shock reading that.
yeah. Well, I'm sure that these corrupt elements exist within all the major religions. I mean, even in Hinduism, you get white tantric, red tantric yoga, and black tantric yoga. So, what is black tantric? I would assume that is a form of satanic ritual abuse that involves killing, to harvest adrenochrome from the blood of the virgin child. Horrible, but there you go. So white tantric yoga would presumably be a very pure form of yoga practice. Red tantric is sexual tantric yoga. And black tantric is very black, very dark, as you would assume. Would such a
Oh,
thing,
very specific.
would such a thing exist within Buddhism? Oh, probably, but I don't have any evidence to support the claim, so I'm not going to say it.
Now I've heard Buddhist priests are the same.
The same?
Yeah, but I mean I can't prove it. But one thing I remember is here Sri Lankan's hidden scourge of religious child abuse. The sentence of a senior Buddhist monk for indecent assault in the UK highlights a child sexual abuse problem in Sri Lanka. Yeah, so
Oh,
that
dear.
was that one. And then another one in 2022 was against young girls, Buddha
Oh,
Maitreya.
oh,
Yeah, in fact, loads of them.
really?
Thailand mainly Thailand, India, Sri Lanka, Cambodia. Cambodia, even recently, more than half of the children were raped and beaten.
What?
Oh, yeah, and that's the country's population.
Goodness.
Says the
Hor-
Australian Broadcasting Corporation, but yeah.
Horrifying. All right, brother, I think we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, one little piece of your work comes to mind for a tip for everybody: how to spot a psychopath That's a good read by author Timothy Spearman on Academia. How to Spot a Psychopath.
How to spot a psychopath in the crowd, yeah.
All right, then. Been a great show, and we'll be back